Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Sunday live stream today. And the topic I want to discuss for today's quick little short video, I promise I'm not going to go over, maybe an hour today. I want to kind of tell you guys about what kind of engineering disciplines and, what aspects of engineer you can look forward to becoming in the future. So I have a couple of different topics for, just trying to study engineering and trying to figure out what kind of field or discipline that you want to go into. So I'm going to go over a couple of these topics today just to make sure you guys know what you're doing. So I am most likely going to just hang around for at least half an hour or an hour today. So hopefully you guys leave your questions in the chat, which is that side, and I will make sure to get to your question as quickly as possible. So I'm already taking a look at who's joining today. So we have Axel now, Country Boy 19, Ozan, hello everyone. And let me look at my live dashboard here where I get all of the pretty information of who's in, who's out. And I have currently 45 people watching. So 45 people, that's a good amount. And if you think about it, that's kind of like giving a talk inside of a small classroom of people. And so 45 is not too bad. Oh, so people are exiting the room as well, which also happens in a small classroom. So I am going to go ahead and start. We have some languages in here that I do not recognize, but that's okay. I know this channel gets a lot of international folks. So that means we get, people from China, India, Vietnam, Australia, Singapore. I think Singapore is one of those countries that frequent my channel quite often. So let's go ahead and get started with some things that I have listed out here. So what do I have at the very top? UI and front-end engineering. So nowadays, you can work on things like iOS, Android, and the web. And they all are a little bit different in their own ways. And what often happens in this industry is that you're probably going to be just an iOS engineer or an Android or a web engineer. It is not all that common to be an engineer in all three of these fields. So let's see. Being a front-end engineer usually involves working on the web stack or the mobile stack these days. If you like combining the multiple aspects of, designing, making sure your layouts fit the page and all that good stuff, you want to combine design and engineering together to solve layout and aesthetic challenges, then this is going to be the right direction for you. So this also involves a lot of math, is what I'm seeing inside of the chat here. And the type of math that you typically use as a UI engineer is figuring out how big the screens are, how to solve for padding issues, how to make your layout fit the screen properly with the padding, how to calculate things such as the number of tiles that you want to put on the page. So that's typically what you'll face as a UI person. You're not going to face the other interesting issues of being like a backend engineer. So if you like, or if you have the patience of designing things with code, then you'll enjoy being a front-end person. That's kind of my take on it. So the other type of engineer that you can become is a backend database engineer. So personally, I think the most interesting challenges lie in the back end side of things. As much as I personally like programming the UI, designing mobile screens, making the web pages look good, I think setting up the architecture and sort of the structure for a database, I find that to be a little bit more interesting, what I would consider a little bit more fun for me. For example, how we can set up objects in a database so that we can maintain their relationships so that things don't become insane. That's always a lot of fun, along with providing some kind of interface, right? So you want to have a middle layer such as PHP, Node, or Google Go. And this layer is supposed to make it easy for the front end projects to communicate with this database or this backend. So doing all that I find to be one of the best parts of engineering, because you can talk about architecture, you can talk about how to solve your issues on the front end by making the back end respond really quickly. So I think this is also really fun because it's challenging for me. And when you get all the database things correct, it's really rewarding to see how fast it responds and how much of an impact that makes on the company. So that's the back end side of things. Oh no, do I have a bug in here? Dismiss and remove. Looks like I have a bug in my code. This is always one of those issues that you run into when you run things live. So let's see. Let's remove this one. Remove this one as well. And let's see. Full stack engineering. So if you're still in college, you've heard of the term full stack engineering, but probably not too aware of what is involved. So let's say you have the patience to build out both the front end and back end infrastructures for a company, right? Then you'd be a perfect candidate for full stack engineering. Most engineers prefer not to do so much UI because they don't have the patience for it. And they also lack the design skills to put things in the correct location on the page, which is understandable because sometimes that kind of work feels really tedious. So putting together a good looking form that takes in like the username, email, password, reset password, login with Facebook, all of those components can take an engineer probably a half a day to do all of that. And sometimes we don't really want to maintain that type of code because it's also very tedious and time consuming. And then we have other engineers that enjoy design so much, they'd rather spend their time on things that they can physically see, like with their eyeballs, visually see these things on the screen. So they like to see what their code is doing. So you have engineers that like that. And then we have people that only love to work with ones and zeros on the database on the back end and making sure that things, the data is going in correctly and coming out properly. So if you have all of these skills that we just talked about, you enjoy working on the database, you like modifying the back end so that your front end works correctly, then you are one of the perfect candidates for a company such as Facebook, because Facebook, they only most of the engineers that work at Facebook, or the ones that touch the Facebook website, the Facebook mobile apps, they are full stack people. So they can write, or they modify the code on the back end, and then they have to generate the type of data that they need on the front end. So that's why they spend a lot of hours working at the Facebook campus. I think the typical engineers there, they tend to work a lot of long hours to make sure their projects are complete. Okay, and nowadays you are going to run into these new types of engineering fields, such as machine learning and data scientists or big data engineers, right? So machine learning is a new field that has emerged in the last couple of years. Machine learning has always been a topic of discussion, but it's only been like this really, really hot topic, I feel like, these past couple of years, because now you always hear about artificial intelligence, right? And this is going to be huge as we're getting into the age of AI and other things like speech recognition, facial recognition, making sure that computers do a better job at it. So, for example, you have Siri for the iOS platform. You have Bixby and you have Google Speech. I think that's what they call it. All of these different speech recognition engines are built out using machine learning to make it smarter and smarter. So I feel like this is going to be one of those big things in the next 5 years. Yeah. So, Apple for WWDC this year, they introduced a lot of these ML packages. So you can work with Core ML now, do like photo recognition and all that good stuff. So that's something interesting that you should definitely look into if you like doing that kind of thing. Being a data scientist, if you love working with numbers, then being a big data scientist is something you should really enjoy, I think. I also love being able to kind of analyze the data and also gain insights on how users are interacting with a platform. So sometimes you can base what you work on, like what types of features you build for a company. You can, base it on the behavior and the patterns that your users engage in. And you can really take advantage and serve them the appropriate products and also the correct ads for your company. So this is a very lucrative market right now, which means that data scientists, they're making a lot of bread, a lot of green. So that's a nice industry to be in nowadays, I think. It wasn't such a big thing when I was coming out of college, so we never really talked about big data, and it seems like nowadays all you hear about is big data and how you can use it to impact your company. So let's move on here. I think this miss and remove has a bug in it. That's unfortunate. Let me just rerun my app again here. And I think I have one last thing I do want to talk about. So where do you begin? How do you even get into some of these disciplines of engineering? Well, regardless of what kind of engineer that the folks out there that you want to be, having a solid foundation in computer science is like incredibly important, like so important to have a good solid base for you to build on. Now, in other words, you want to have the knowledge in data structures, and I think a lot of you guys that are studying engineering in college, you are required to take data structures classes and algorithms, right? So furthermore, you should know how to think on your feet and solve a ton of different challenges that come your way. So if someone wants you to figure out how to optimize the amount of things that a user sees before they check out or hit the checkout page and confirm things with their credit card, you want to minimize the amount of clicks to get to the final checkout confirmation page, then you have to understand how a lot of different aspects of engineering really works together to make that user workflow optimized. And then you also have to solve things like how to store data in your database so that you minimize the space that is required of your entire platform, and that saves you a lot of money in the long run. Then you also have problems like how many different types of servers I have to deploy in the cloud, and how many instances do I have to spin up to manage my entire project. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in engineering, and it's all very, very interesting to me, at least. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. And I think I am done with my little short discussion. I hit my 15-minute mark. That's kind of what I was aiming for. So let me get through some of these questions here. And I think maybe I'll just stick around for another 15 minutes today. Yeah, don't want to stay here for too long because I haven't really had my breakfast yet, which means I'm a little hungry right now. Okay, any interesting questions? Where's everyone coming from today? 1 a.m. here, but I still here to see your live stream. Well, I do appreciate you, Hong Trinad. It is an honor to have you inside of the stream today. Fred, I haven't seen you in a while. Tech noob, 12:24 a.m. Yeah. Wow, from Pakistan, Bangladesh. Yeah. So let's see. Yamar Chan here. You can read this. Benjamin says that I am grateful to be part of the 45. Yeah. Ghana. Please make videos for native versus cross app. Which one is better? Please. I'm getting a lot of comments with, I guess, I want to make a video on how to properly phrase your questions. I know English is not the primary language of a lot of the subscribers to this channel, but I would like to make a couple of notes for people that are trying to ask questions, and asking a question effectively in English makes a huge difference, I think. Would I continue the Instagram Firebase course? I think there's been a lot of good content for that course already. I don't know if I'm going to continue it. Personally, I've had to take a little bit of a break from that Firebase course, and I've been thinking about new courses that I want to release. So I'm going to probably leave this course alone for now. Front end by far is the easiest, and that is something I 100% agree with. Being a front end engineer, because sometimes it's hard to measure how good you are, because there's just so many different freaking frameworks and things that you can work with on the front end side that it almost feels like it's hard to say whether or not you're like a good developer. Most of the things that you program and develop on a day-to-day basis, you're pretty much just modifying what the UI kit framework is giving you, and you're modifying what the JavaScript frameworks are kind of doing. Well, let me take that back. I feel like JavaScript engineering is way more interesting than iOS engineering. Do you have a forum to discuss the apps you have shown how to make? Currently, no. I kind of want to set up an area for discussion, but it's going to be rather difficult for me personally to just sit there and look at everyone's messages. So that's something that I haven't really gone out of my way to do just yet. I would like to provide a space for all of you guys to just sit in and chat. And so maybe by the time I reach 100K subscribers on this channel, I can provide something like that for you. We're getting up there. Hello from Tunisia, mobile developer. Well, welcome, Fadwa Betri. Backend for the win. I love math as well. Some Euler project. Oh, those algorithms, the Euler project website, those problems are really difficult to solve, I find. Yeah. Sitting here doing calculus too. Well, calculus is one of those things that you have to study, and when you come out of college, you'll find that a lot of it, like 99% of it, you pretty much are not going to use. So that's the sad state of how schools work. So let me turn off the simulator here. How many of you guys have watched the movie Suicide Squad? I just recently rented this movie. I thought a lot of the characters in the movie were very interesting. However, the movie itself was not that great. So one of my favorite characters is probably Harley Quinn, and also the Enchantress I find to be really interesting. All of the other characters, I feel like were not all that fleshed out, especially even the Joker and Katana, I think her name is. Not all that interesting to me. This character right here died within 2 minutes of his introduction. It was a really strange movie, to say the least. Oh, so we have a donation today, or a super chat. So let me see, scroll down. All the developers, let's see what the message is for that. Okay, so Johan Gaby says, Johan Gaby, is this Johan Albrechtsen or a different Johan? Is it Johan? I think that's Johan. What should I focus to learn initially if in a future I want to build computers, cell phones, hardware, etc.? I'm still a sophomore with a part-time job. So let me see if I understand this question correctly. If you want to build computers, so if you're not talking about software, then I suppose you're talking about hardware. Yeah, hardware. Building hardware is quite different compared to building software. So you should look into things like Arduino. And Arduino is, I think it's like this little circuit board that allows you to build things like remote controlled cars, remote or arms that you can control using a remote. So you can, build out two arms that hold a box and move it to a different location. So, yeah. And if you go to college and you study computer engineering, when I was in university, I studied math. But you can also study electrical engineering and computer science, which we call EECS. So there's this thing called EECS. And inside of that class, when I was taking EECS courses, I remember having these circuit boards and then plugging in these transistors to make it work. But yeah, if you're just a sophomore in high school, I would suggest looking into Arduino, looking into circuit board technology. I personally, I was putting together computers when I was 15 or 16 years old. So I went out, I guess I didn't go out, but I did some research on, I think, Tom's Hardware, bought a bunch of PC parts from newegg.com. Computer cases, motherboards, RAM, modules, hard drives, fans. What else is there on a computer? The power supply. And I think a lot of other different parts, and I assembled the computer together. So if you are interested in doing that type of work, then look into building your own computer. And then I guess one of the harder parts is configuring the computer to to optimize it. So if you want to overheat, or not overheat, but overclock the CPU, overclock the RAM, overclock the video card, that's always a lot of fun. Okay, so Piers Ebden says that recently you seem to often put down iOS and Swift. How come? I think because recently I think some part of me always seems to find iOS development to be somewhat boring. Is that what I want to say? Yeah. I guess after you've done anything for more than, seems like 5 years now, anything you do for 5 years just becomes really boring. So, am I going to watch the Apple special event on the 12th of September, which is in 2 days? Yeah, I want to do either a live stream while I watch the special event with you guys, or maybe I'll do a recap on 10 of the things that I found interesting for the Apple event. I am probably going to buy one of those new iPhones. I'm using this Android phone right now because I lost my iPhone 7 Plus, which is extremely sad, but that's what happens in this world. So I'm probably going to get the smaller version of the iPhone 8, because I had the iPhone 7 Plus for the longest time and the iPhone 6 Plus. And then when I kind of started using this smaller form factor of a cell phone, I found it to be much easier to use than the really gigantic iPhone 7 Plus. So I am going to get that. Sadly, though, I think they're going to sell the iPhone 8s for $800 or $900 a pop. That's really expensive. I don't know if I can justify buying something like that just yet. I'm also going to try to buy one for my mom as well. So that's going to be about $1,600. Okay, so doing a undergraduate degree in computer science or doing a diploma in software development. So depending on where you are from, you don't always have the option to study these two topics. It's always just computer science in most universities, I feel like. I definitely did not have software development as an option in college. I would study computer science more. So the thing about software development is you're probably not going to learn about data structures and algorithms as much, but software development is more practical. Now, computer science is where you study algorithms and where you really start to learn those topics. And the reason why that's important is because when you go into the interview room, when you do the whiteboarding exercises, that's what you get tested on. They don't really care about what types of things you've done in the past, which is really silly, right? I really wish they changed that part about job interviews. Johan says, I really appreciate the Android tutorials. Yeah. Computer science or computer engineering. Either one, whatever you like most. I often get a lot of these questions like, should I do A or should I do B? Well, whatever you enjoy most, you should do that. It's a pretty simple answer. It's good that you included Android. You'll gain more subscribers. I don't really, I guess subscribers is, I'm not going to say that it's not important, but on a list of, I think, 10 things, I think subscribers, the count of subscribers for my channel, I think it's probably way down there, like maybe the 8th or 9th most important thing that I look at for this channel. Fuchsia OS, I've heard about it, I haven't really touched it. Arduino, yep. So when I was teaching in Shanghai last month, we had a class on machine learning, and they used Arduino boards for that class, and it was really interesting. They built out these smart cars that knew how to like chase each other on a track, and it had a lot of machine learning inside of those boards. I didn't say you were going to leave IG course. So which part of the pagination are you looking for? I think most people have, yeah. I think the home feed pagination is a thing that I have left out. I kind of want you guys to try to solve that problem on your own first, based on the things that I've shown you on the other pagination screens. And it's very challenging actually to implement the home feed pagination. So I want to think about it some more before I shoot that last video. So Ryan says, I'm employed as a .NET JavaScript developer. Should I always be concerned if I'm worried if my code isn't quite perfect, but it does the tasks needed? So when you're talking about maintaining your code base, whatever works now is always going to be just fine. And you're going to have to refactor your code when someone wants a new feature to be introduced inside of your program. So that's when you have to refactor things and reevaluate your code. That's typically how it works. Building a computer today is like building with Legos. Yep. Well, I think it's always been like that. It's all about buying the correct parts that you want for your computer. And then whenever your parts feel a little older, in 5 to 10 years of time, you replace those parts with something faster. Recently started iOS development and am very much influenced by your designs or your lessons. What should I do to improve my front-end designing skills? Yeah, so that's a good question. I often meet front-end engineers that are not good at design at all. So I consider myself to be okay with design, even though my website isn't all that design heavy. The things that are important about design is 2 things. I feel like color science is very, very important. If you are a front-end person and you don't understand how colors match together to produce an aesthetically appealing image to like the human eye, then you have to study color science. Just at least spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks on matching colors correctly. Now, even if you take a look at this simulator app right here, if you take a look at this app, right, the color scheme of the entire layout right here, it's not that complicated, or it looks really simple to someone that didn't write the darn thing. But quite a few things are spent, or quite a bit of time was spent on deciding on this white color up at the very top. And then we have the black text inside of the white background here for each one of these cards, or these tiles is what I call it. And you have to get the spacing correct between each one of the the text fields. So you see the spacing is really consistent. The padding is consistent. And then you have these dotted lines right here that hopefully you guys can see. So, this is not like the best looking design ever, but it looks way nicer and way more appealing than just flat text. And something that you guys can probably tell here is that there's a gradient of some kind of bluish color here down to the bottom, which is purple. And so a lot of front end design goes into apps like this just to make it look better. So yeah, so color science and then spacing to make sure you have breathing room between your text, and also font decision, font sizes, font colors. That's also very important. So Learn Swift asks, any plans on new algorithm videos? I like some of you guys can probably tell, but I release a lot of algorithm videos. You can just check out the algorithm playlist. There's about maybe like 10 or 15 of those videos right now. I really like producing those videos. The problem with them is because they are inherently difficult to understand sometimes, or they're very hard to explain. So that's why it takes me a lot of time to record those videos. But I like doing them, and I will continue to do them. I will probably produce some for Kotlin because it's such a new language, and I feel like doing algorithms is a perfect way to understand the syntax of a language. Embedded system developer wants to be an Android developer. Is it a good idea? So I'm a strong advocate for doing the things that you enjoy. So if you like being an Android developer, you should definitely try to make that change. I know it's not always possible because you have to make sure you have a job. You have to have some kind of income. So it's all about learning things on the side to make sure you improve your skill set, and then you make the change into that field. Okay, where am I at? How's the demand for Node.js developer in Canada? I don't really know. I feel like Node is not as popular as it used to be, but it is still in pretty high demand as a language, I think. Is it better to use library or write everything on my own? If you're just working on a project by yourself, I feel like it is always, or if you're just trying to learn engineering in general, it's always better to write everything on your own. What is my net worth? $1 billion. Yeah, so do you know how do you check if the Firebase user is logged in to a different device? So I had to solve this problem for one of my clients. I simply put a check, I guess, was it a Boolean value? I think I kept track of what the device ID was, or some kind of randomly generated ID inside of Firebase for that user. And if I log into a different device, I can see if that random ID is the same. And based on that, I can tell if the user is on multiple devices. Firebase is pretty good. Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the last video, but inside of one of those early access programs for Firebase, and they're releasing some new technologies. So I'm going to be putting out some videos for that, and hopefully you guys will find those to be really fun. React Native. Node.js. So I use React.js a whole lot. I like it a lot. I think it's a great way to program. React Native, I haven't done it so much, but things like this I want to put on my channel as well. But it's kind of hard to produce so many different types of videos for just one channel. Kind of wish I had someone else to do this with me, but it's not always that easy. Oh, UCSD, University of California, San Diego. I think I applied for this college when I was looking at universities. I think the 4 colleges that I applied for was, what did I apply for? Well, obviously I applied for UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, I think, and also UC San Diego. I ended up getting into all of those colleges, so I kind of regret not going to a farther college or farther universities such as UC San Diego, because, well, UC Berkeley is only about 2 hours away from Sacramento, where my family lives, and I kind of want to, like, looking back on it, it would have been nice to be a little bit further away from my family just to experience how that is. Yeah. So Adrian says that. Adrian, it's good to see you again. So some company in San Francisco offered me a job to work remotely, and they ask how much do I charge for 1 hour. The question is, how much do I charge if I'm junior or senior developer? Well, there's a website called Hello Bonsai, and I don't know if I can show you guys what that looks like right now. Maybe I can. So let's see if I have this thing here. Just want to make sure I'm not showing anything I don't want to show today. So, okay. Okay. All right. So because I'm live streaming, my connection doesn't allow me to surf a bunch of websites. So let's see. What do I want to do here? Chrome. No, that's not what I want. Okay, I think that's what I want. Okay, so let's move me off to the side here. Okay, so this is the course that you guys can look at if you want to purchase the Instagram Firebase course. So there's a website called Hello Bonsai that kind of tells you about how much engineers charge for an hourly rate. So let's see, Hello Bonsai hourly rates. That's what I want to do. Freelance Explorer Bonsai. So just looking at this chart here, get rid of my face for a couple of seconds. You can see if you want to be an iOS engineer, the rate that they have for someone that's with 1 to 3 years of experience, you can charge $60 to $80 or $80 to $100. That's what this chart is telling you. If you change this to 3 to 5 years, you can charge $120 to $140 an hour. And the numbers here, I find it to be quite accurate. And these are the rates that I charge. So for what it's worth, I think this chart is an excellent way to determine what engineers are making in the United States. So it's obviously going to be different if you're an international person, international engineer. So yeah. Okay, what's in this guy here? Let's bring you back. Yeah. So let's see here. Bring it back. Okay. So it seems like a lot of you guys are interested in the algorithm related videos. Yeah. Are you going to be doing a full course on Android as well? Yep. I'm going to be expanding some of the material on the website to start including more Android related material. So, do you think that going to a well-known top tier school is important when trying to find an internship or job? State versus Ivy League, are companies more worried about what you know? So here's how it works in the engineering field. When you're interviewing for a job, the most important thing is kind of what school you graduated from. So they're gonna look at your resume and say, oh, you graduated from, like maybe my college, which is UC Berkeley, one of the more well-known public schools in California. So they see that and they often are impressed at that. If they see that, oh, you just graduated from a state college, then that's fine too. We've hired plenty of state college graduates, and some of the state engineers are even better than the university engineers. So it all depends on how you present yourself, really. The college, I don't think, is all that important after like the first 5 seconds of meeting someone. So Rizwan says, I'm going to say you're awesome. Question is, which backend development an iOS developer should learn? PHP, Node, Java, Spring, Ruby on Rails. So depending on where you are in the world, I would not, what would I not recommend? I think they're all okay. I think they're all fine. Ruby on Rails seems to be losing traction these days, and it's not as popular anymore. Java Spring is a heavy enterprise framework. Node is more of a new kid on the block. PHP is somewhat older, but it's still holding strong. So Abde Kadar asks, what are algorithms used for in iOS? What exactly am I going to do with it? I never learned it and clearly never used it. Algorithms are very, very important. So let's say you want to design a list, or let's say you want to design a tree, some kind of tree that allows you to filter things on your page. Like, let's say I have electronics, computers, video cards, NVIDIA, Intel. So you have this tree, right? And then you also have these subtopics or these other children of that tree. And then you have to build it out so that it looks like this, and then this. So if you think about that problem for a little bit, how can you support that type of filtering system if you don't have algorithms to work with, right? And you can have, based on where you are, like maybe you're in furniture, and then you have to have sofas, brown sofas, leather sofas, and all these different subtopics. So yeah, I use Golang. So Golang is probably not as user friendly, or it's not very beginner friendly, is probably what I want to say. What is the best type of engineer to be? Well, the best engineer that you can be is the best type of engineer to be. What is your purpose in life? Well, I think we are only on this earth for such a short amount of time that making sure that you do what you want to do, then that's kind of your purpose. It's not as easy as, easier said than done. Firebird. Okay. All right. So we have 77 people on the stream, and it's gone on for 50 minutes. So I'm going to sign off in the next 5 minutes. And I do want to apologize for the questions that I have not gotten to in today's stream. I know a lot of you guys want to ask really, really good questions, and I do see a bunch of good questions here. So let's see, what do you enjoy about iOS development compared to other types of development like Android development? iOS development, I feel like, is easier. I think it feels like an easier ecosystem. Xcode is a really solid editor. It makes it easy to launch your code onto the device. And the biggest problem is like signing your apps and submitting it to the App Store. I find it to be very painful the first couple of times, and then after that everything is okay. So yeah, I can't really say that I like iOS development more than anything else, but I'm always looking for new things to do. Whenever I'm learning new technologies, I always enjoy it. So whatever that is doesn't matter to me, as long as it's new, interesting, and practical. Then it's always fun to learn. What do you think about working as an iOS developer after high school? Well, if you can get someone to hire you, then yeah, that'd be great. I probably would not recommend. Let's see, would I not recommend it? I think engineering is there's such a wide amount of things that you can learn. So it's just a wide discipline, right? If you don't go to college, you are probably not going to learn about data structures and algorithms. And if you don't know those two topics really well, then I would say that you're at a bit of a disadvantage when you're trying to discuss how to properly engineer a feature. Now, if you're really intelligent, you can learn all of that on your own. And nowadays, it's even easier because Google has pretty much all of your answers. And even if you do know about data structures and algorithms, you will still have to Google for your answers. So if you're really capable as just a developer, then I would say, go for it. Okay. Okay, so last question for today. My thoughts on server-side Swift. I really dislike Katura. I also dislike Perfect, and I also dislike Vapor. From what I can tell after working with these languages or these frameworks in Swift for about 2 days, I did not like Swift server-side development at all. And I would say that it's mostly because of Xcode. So after having worked on like Java backend, a little bit of Node backend, Golang, PHP, what else have I worked on for the backend? Rails as well. So I've touched a lot of these languages, and all of those languages are like pretty good for backend development. And then when I started to work on Swift, Xcode just became this huge obstacle to producing something useful. So I would say that if I didn't have to work with Xcode for server side, it would have been much better. But yeah, like all of these other server side languages, you don't have to work with this huge, this like monolithic, slow editor such as Xcode. Okay. All right. How many of you guys are ready for lunch, dinner, or maybe even breakfast? I woke up probably 2 hours ago. So right now it's about 12:17. I think I woke up at about 10:30. Now I didn't have breakfast. I woke up, prepared some of these notes as to what I wanted to talk about today. And here we are. 55 minutes later inside the stream. I will now bid adieu to everyone in the chat room today. Really good to see all of you. I know we have a lot of questions here. Let's see. All right, last question by Kevin P. What do you think about MOOCs? I think this stands for Massive Online Education Courses. Online something. Yeah. Anyhow, it's like Udemy, Udacity, Coursera, edX, Khan Academy, those types of solutions. Do you feel they're credible to employers? I think right now, from what I've seen, especially in engineering, employers are no longer looking at colleges so much. Yeah. So like, I think this question comes a lot from people that are working in these other industries. So let's take accounting and finance, for example here. If you're trying to get certifications, so, you know, like your CPA, your whatever your financial certification is, then you have to have those before you can enter like that specific field in finance or accounting. So it makes sense to have certifications and accredited education for those fields. Now in engineering, it's all about what you know in here. It's all about how you can communicate what's in your head on the whiteboard, on paper, and in code. So if you can do all of those things, then like colleges and certification, like none of that stuff matters at all. That's probably both the positives and negatives of engineering. You really have to know what you're doing. Yeah. Okay. Watching until my power goes out. Yeah. Okay. How much time do I spend coding? I used to code for like 10 hours a day and I really loved it. Yeah, so Solomon Amari says that please do iOS tutorials. You wanted to make an app like Uber with amazing functionalities. Yeah, I do want to do that still, but yeah, as you can imagine, the Uber app is pretty complicated. Yeah. Never finished the Instagram course. I think a lot of the content in that course is good enough. I do want to add a couple of additional lessons at the end, and I'm thinking about how to do that. So when that comes around, I'll let you guys know. Yeah, so cloud functions, and like I was mentioning earlier, the early access program for Firebase. So they have a lot of good things in the works right now. Like the Firebase team, they're working on some really cool stuff. And I would like to build projects with the new technologies and not some of the old stuff. So whatever that means, you can determine on your own. Notifications in the Instagram course, that is something that has not been talked about yet, and you're going to have to use cloud functions for that. Now, a lot of the technologies, like when you're learning all of these features, you kind of have to give it a try on your own first. I know a lot of the when I'm building out these courses, I'm just pretty much giving you guys the solution, and you have to get used to figuring out these problems kind of on your own. It's not always easy, and it definitely takes me a lot of time to prepare those lessons and figure out how Firebase works, how cloud functions work. It's not always easy for me, and this is this is the fun part of engineering, figuring out how things work. So having said that, I do want to provide some more content for that course, and also provide other things for other people. And yeah. And then we always have this question about why don't I create an app and make $1 billion? Yeah, for some reason I get this question a lot. Yeah. So making $1 billion is not easy. So Zach asks, do I plan on creating an in-depth course like the Instagram Firebase course for Kotlin? So yes, I do. When the newer... Okay, let me just say this. When the newer SDKs for Firebase comes out, which is going to happen sometime in the future, I will build a Kotlin course for that. So Solomon says that show the basics about notification and cloud functions. Yeah. So the cloud functions inside of Swift requires you to launch a Node.js server, and setting all of that stuff up it's gonna take some time, and it changes every now and then depending on how your Mac is set up. So I've thought about that a lot, and I want to find the best way of presenting the cloud function aspect of Firebase so that it's easy to maintain. But yeah, notifications, they are important. So I spent all of last week trying to improve some things on the website, and I'm still not done with it, which, yeah. Yeah, it's the best way to show it inside an Instagram course. Yeah, I mean, you have to launch your own Node.js server, I think. Yeah, you have to launch this other separate program on your computer and also in the Firebase cloud. So it's not just iOS. You have to do maybe 5 different things to get it to work. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. All right. So one question about Storyboard, which snuck in the last hour. Is it still worth learning about storyboards? Yes. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. All right. So good stuff, everyone. I want to head out, or not head out. Maybe head out for lunch today and figure out what I want to do for the rest of next week. Maybe I will do a live stream for the Apple event on September 12th, which is 2 days from now. And then if I do a live stream, hopefully you guys will join me for that stream and take a look at some of the new things that are being discussed. iPhone 8, iPhone 8 Plus, and the iPhone X is coming out. There was a leak on Apple's developer website for the iOS GM Goldmaster, not iOS, but Xcode 9 GM and iOS 11 GM. So there was a leak for both of those things, and people are already starting to figure out what the naming convention for iOS will be, the naming convention for the devices, and also some other good stuff. So Really looking forward to it. And yeah. So Ankit Sani says that I'm a beginner, so starting with storyboard or my method. Depending on how you want to learn, either way it's fine. You'll find out that engineering or in engineering, in software development, you have to learn like 100 different things. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about figuring out. So the thing about engineering, I guess this is one last thing I want to say, is that you just have to figure things out on your own. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So goodbye, everyone, and have a nice Sunday. Bye-bye.